Up next, our first tech talk of the exchange. Please welcome Thomas Larsen from the AI Futures Project for his talk on AI 2027.
Cool. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. My name is Thomas Larsen, and I am from the AI Futures Project, and am an AI 2027 co-author, which is what I'm here to talk to you all today about. So AI 2027 is a concrete, detailed scenario forecast for how the next few years of AI progress might play out. It shows basically year by year and then month by month the progression of AI and how it affects sort of various parts of the world. It proceeds as sort of a single scenario, and then in late 2027 branches into the green branch and the red branch for two different endings. So starting off, why did we write this? Our main motivation is that many of the top AI companies right now are racing to build AGI and then superintelligence, which is an AI system that is much smarter than the smartest humans. This is the country of geniuses in a data center that Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, often talks about. My view is that they might succeed within the next few years and are very likely to succeed within the next decade. If they do, that would be one of the most important events in history, the transition from pre-AGI to post-AGI and superintelligence. So we think that the world needs more clear scenarios explaining what that transition might look like to help us prepare and take positive actions that can help us shape it for the better. So this is our homepage, AI 2027. It is a website. It's online. You can go read it. And I highly encourage all of you to actually go do that. It is about 70 pages long. And as I said, starts sort of year by year and then goes to month by month as really important things start happening. It is, of course, just one scenario. We tried very, very hard to predict the future as best as we can and make it as plausible as possible. But we still have, of course, like huge amounts of uncertainty. And so we expect that lots of it is going to be wrong. That being said, we still think it's extremely useful to sort of have one possibility for how this all might play out. One thing you might ask is, given all of the extreme things that we're predicting in the scenario, why this is even credible at all? And one answer is the huge amounts of research that we did to try to justify the choices that we made in the scenario. But an easier answer is that lots of other people in academia, in industry, and in government all take the scenario outlined in AI 2027 extremely seriously. So Jack Clark, who's a co-founder of Anthropic, which is one of the leading AI companies, says that AI 2027 is very, very good, and likely much of it will come true. Yoshua Bengio, who is widely known as a godfather of AI and a Turing Award winner, highly recommends reading our scenario. And Dean Ball, who's currently in the White House, says that it's essential to basically look at scenarios like this, and that AI 2027 is a rigorous forecast of the future. So it's not just us who are predicting these sort of extreme transformations that AI might bring to the world over the next few years. OK, so let's dive into the scenario itself. The beginning of the scenario, AI 2027, is basically trends as normal. So this graph sort of shows one of what I think is one of the most important trends in AI over the last few years. And it shows sort of the movement from chatbots to agents. And let me explain what I mean by that. So you all can look at the beginning of the graph here. These are real data points, the black and red data points. And they show that at the beginning of 2022, you have AIs that can operate over the period of seconds. What that looks like is a chatbot, basically, where you have a human that gives a question that wants your AI to answer some sort of very specific, narrow thing. and then the AI just gives a response to that. And so that's like a very, very quick action. Those types of AIs cannot go off on their own and do actions sort of autonomously. Over the last few years, we've seen that starting to change. So today, we're starting to see the beginning of coding agents that can go off and do minutes or maybe 30-minute long tasks by themselves. And we're seeing these already deployed in the AI companies. We think that this trend towards increasing agenticness and increasing autonomy will continue. And in the AI 2027 scenario, we see this green trend continue, and that's what happens. So we see that we get AI systems that are not just doing tasks that take 30 minutes, they're doing tasks that take days, weeks, and eventually months, all on their own, completely autonomously. This graph is specifically coding. So there's like sort of this notion of general tasks, and there's notion of coding in particular. A reason that we focus on coding is that we think that once you've automated coding and AI research in general, the AIs can learn to do all of the other tasks much more quickly. So let me show you what happens in the rest of our scenario. So this is sort of the summary of what happens in 2027. And it begins with the end of that previous graph, where you have AIs that are now functioning more like employees and much less like chatbots. At that point, in early 2027 in our scenario, OpenBrain, which is our name for the leading AI company as sort of a stand-in because we don't want to call out any particular lab, that company is the first to get to the superhuman coder milestone, which we define as basically an AI system that can do all of the coding tasks as well as the top human in one of these AI companies. A sort of simple model of AI research is that there are two main tasks that AI researchers do. One is coming up with new ideas for different algorithms that that could make AIs better, and another is the actual coding and implementation of those ideas. In our scenario, in early 2027, the AIs can do the coding part of that, but they cannot yet do the research idea generation. And so the humans at the beginning of 2027 are mostly spending their time coming up with new ideas and are letting the AIs do all of the coding for them. And so this accelerates research somewhat. And by the middle and end of 2027, we start to see AIs that are fully autonomously doing the AI research. And so this is sort of what we call the intelligence explosion, and leads to much, much faster AI progress in the later half of 2027. So in the scenario, what happens at that point is that the humans become more like executives and CEOs, as opposed to just chatbots or employees or workers. So now, near the end of 2027 in our scenario, we've got these human executives, each managing giant corporations of AI systems working underneath them, doing AI research extremely quickly and much better than any human. They've automated not just the coding, but also the idea generation, the creativity, and all that. So at this point, the rate of AI progress is going really quickly, and that's when we see the alignment issues really come into importance. So what do I mean by that? Current AIs are, in my mind, misaligned, but not adversarially so. What I mean by that is the current AI systems will lie to you. If you ask them a politically difficult question, they will be extremely sycophantic. They will say whatever data they think will make you the most happy. But they're not doing this in a very systematic way. They're not very smart. And they're not doing it intentionally to achieve some sort of malicious long-term goal. At this point in the scenario, in late 2027, that starts to change. And we start to see that the AIs are adversarially misaligned. And what these AIs do is they start to sabotage the research the ability of the open brain researchers to understand what's going on. And fortunately for the humans, they start to see evidence of this happening. They start to see evidence of the AI model sandbagging on certain research tasks. They start to see loads of examples of AI deception. And so they face a choice. And that choice is what leads to the branch point for the two different endings of our scenario. So I'll start with the race scenario, the red scenario, the one where they decide to continue on even despite these warning signs. In that branch, we see OpenBrain doing a quick fix, so putting in basically the examples of the AI lying into the training corpus and training on those examples. But unfortunately, this doesn't fix the underlying problem and only teaches the AIs to lie even better. At that point, by the end of 2027, we get to artificial superintelligence, so AIs that are much, much smarter than the best human at everything. These AIs are deployed in the company to start, but then due to the intense AI race that's been happening over the last few years, with other companies and China and even other countries soon to get to that level of AI capability, there are strong pressures to deploy these AI systems broadly throughout the economy and the government. And that's exactly what happens. So in the red branch, what happens is there's a huge superintelligence-powered arms race where robots, AI-powered superweapons, et cetera, are built and are deployed as fast as possible sort of throughout the world. Over the next years, we see AIs become more and more embedded and gain more and more power. But unfortunately, they're all misaligned and have all been lying to the humans about to what extent they are honest and instruction following the whole time. And that leads to basically the complete AI takeover and existential risk scenario that you might have seen people such as myself being very worried about. The good branch, the green branch that's a bit better, what happens is there is a more substantial overhaul of the AI system. So what happens is once the misalignment was noticed, there were urgent steps taken to undeploy that model, bring in more aligned models, bring in extra expertise from government and from other labs, and help resolve those issues. And in our green scenario, they're able to actually do that really quickly, only spending a few months slowing down and solving this problem. And so they're still able to outrace China to superintelligence. But then we get to sort of the next problem. So we've solved alignment. There are now an aligned army of superintelligences under the control of OpenBrain. The next problem is, who are those superintelligences aligned to? The answer that we take in AI 2027 to that question is, well, they're aligned to the lab CEO. So the CEO of OpenBrain and a small group of advisors gets basically complete control over the alignment of the AIs and what they'll do. So this represents sort of a tiny group in control of the most important technology that's ever been built, and we think that poses an extreme risk. In AI 2027, that actually ends up okay. They end up bringing more people in. They end up retaining democracy, but it's very much a close call. So that's sort of the very, very quick 5-10 minute summary of our scenario. I highly encourage everyone to go read the actual website where all the stuff is justified in way, way more detail and explained sort of in depth. Or maybe come find me afterwards and we can talk about it. Okay, so what can we learn from this sort of scenario? I want to highlight, I think there's a lot to learn, but sort of one key thing I want to highlight is the two threat models that are really central to AI 2027. The first is misaligned AI. We're on track, I think, to build AI systems that are much, much smarter than humans, And I think by default, we don't have good enough alignment techniques to make sure that these AIs share our goals and robustly follow human instructions. So we will need to solve the problem of misaligned AI in order for things to go well. The second problem is this problem of who the AIs end up aligned to. Right now, the situation is that basically the root person who's in charge of these AIs are CEOs of the companies. By default, that will probably still be the case when the first AGIs are built. And this represents one of the most extreme concentrations of power in history. We really, really want to push for methods to distribute the power and make sure that a broad group of Americans are represented in the values of the AGIs and the superintelligences that might be built within the next few years. Okay, so that's my summary. I want to give a big thank you to everyone for listening and end with a few caveats. So first, I hope that I'm completely wrong about all of this and that these predictions are completely inaccurate and that superintelligence is very, very far away, as a lot of people predict, and that alignment's not a problem. And I should say, actually, that our predictions are not at all shared by everyone, right? Huge fractions of academia, government strongly disagree with our predictions. And so, there's a possibility that they're right, and I sure hope they are. If we're not wrong, if this scenario is actually anything close to what actually happens in the real world, our hope is basically that this scenario can serve as a building block to a better understanding of the chaotic times to come and enable actors such as all of you to take more reasonable and informed decisions in the upcoming AI transition. Okay, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it.